from the moment that you could first think clearly after this, what was kind of going through your head? And then did those thoughts or concerns change after you arrived at the hospital? And here I'm assuming that you actually can sort of start to really think about things before you arrive, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, when I first kind of came to, it was mainly I looked at my arms and they were there.
Hmm.
Because you kind of go through, the old march, massive hemorrhaging, airway, respiratory, circulation, and hypothermia. So I wasn't missing limbs or digits. I immediately noticed the burns because you quite literally couldn't miss them. And then in listening to what people were saying, they were saying he's bleeding. They had kind of identified from where. Nobody was talking about, spurting or massive blood loss or anything. So I kind of assumed it was, minimal at worst.
Hmm.
And so then when the aid bag got there, I just kind of got into the burn unit because most people understand what to do with bleeding. They take a shirt off and just stick it to it if you have to. What
Hmm.
most people don't know about is like burns. And so the thing that I was apparently most concerned with was telling everybody where the burn mod was, getting the burn gel in the burn wraps and those things out. And then at that point, Bryce had kind of figured out what was going on and he was doing a bunch of it. And then at that point, my brain just turned back off again.
Hmm. Hmm. Bryce, so what were your thoughts, as this incident transpired in front of you? And same question, as things progress over that 30 minutes, did your thoughts change?
Yeah, it was a pretty wild roller coaster from the instant of detonation to when he was getting loaded up on into the helicopter. When it first happened, I don't know if how much I've described it this way, but I didn't see the actual detonation with my eyes. I just saw the immediate after effects of it. Because I was laying flat on the ground, arm over my head, just in case, because we were testing the backblast on that dummy head, and we just assumed worst case scenario, it just disintegrates it, and we've got little pieces of bone or whatever, flying around just to be extra safe. And so my job was to just trigger the high speed, and then when I look up from it, Adam's body is completely covered in smoke, so I don't know where he is, and
Mm.
pieces of his body armor and his helmet are flying off, landing in front of me. So the first thing that I saw was just his helmet and
Mm.
smoke. So that's sort of like the first like confusion part of shock, where it's just like, I don't know what happened. Did he disappear, blow up, or is he just covered by smoke? So that was the first like surge of adrenaline. And then when I get up to see him, I see he's obviously all still there, which is excellent. But even in that moment, once the adrenaline is really kicking in, it's hard to parse individual thoughts and think things through. So I can still see that he's kind of messed up. The blood is starting to come down his face. The way his body kind of seized up on the ground, you couldn't really tell what was wrong yet. It almost looked like his hand got blown off because of the way that his arm was bent. All of his arm was, well, most of it was black, basically. And then his face, something was definitely wrong with his face. He couldn't breathe or talk. He was more of like the grunting of just like, what your body does when it's going through that kind of trauma. So it started really high of, did he just disappear? And then it kind of settled down to, he's here, he's breathing, he's conscious, but I don't know how bad the injuries are. And you can kind of see it in that footage in our video, but like I was starting to freeze up as I'm looking at him, because I'm seeing more and more things wrong, including the bottom half of his face being misaligned, which is really shocking to see on a person when you see it for the first time. And all of the burns and all of the blood and all of that. And the way that he was grunting, I didn't know if he was like, had a lung had collapsed, or and I just have like almost no medical knowledge, so it's a lot of my brain trying to figure out new information while it's struggling to just be normal anyways. And then once we got some people up there and, you know, I was calling 911, then it kind of settled back down because he was up, he was starting to talk. I could see the blood was pretty localized and not, you know, that serious. His burns were manageable. It's not like, you know, like pieces of his arms were missing. All of his hand was there. So then it kind of keeps stabilizing as it goes on. And then once you start to get the whole grasp of everything, then it kind of picks back up because now you got to think about like Adam's in for a long ride recovery wise. Is this going to get worse if first responders don't get here in time? Is he going to go into some sort of weird shock or heart attack because his body can't handle what's happening to him? There's just a lot of stuff that was all new to me that I was trying to parse through and figure out, and it was really hard. And then finally first responders get there, and of course they're trained to be calm, to keep you calm, and then they just kind of figure it out, and then he's off to the hospital. So it's a weird roller coaster. And definitely not how I expected something like that to go.
Mhm.